The Russian army is encircling Kurakhove, advancing on the flanks. Here is the latest report as of November 10, 2024. Today we'll primarily focus on the Kurakhove operation because, as the headline suggests, this is no clickbait. Kurakhove has indeed been placed under operational encirclement. We'll go over how this happened, where, and what it will ultimately lead to. But before that, let me briefly mention that I'm also writing books. So let's get started by opening the map. Here we see the Russian army surrounding Kurakhove by advancing on the flanks. It's important to distinguish between operational and complete encirclement. The distance to a full encirclement is still 17 kilometers. Look at the settlement of Maksimivka to the south of Kurakhove and Solntsevka to the north. Russian units broke through to Solntsevka just a couple of days ago, advancing 2 kilometers from Novodmitrovka. Now the 17-kilometer gap between Maksimivka and Solntsevka remains, but the main supply route from Zaporizhzhia to Kurakhove is already under Russian fire control. The difference between complete and operational encirclement is that operational encirclement means the road is now under Russian fire control. This is indeed the case. Between Maksimivka and Solntsevka, the 17-kilometer stretch is within range of artillery from both northern and southern flanks, which have ranges of 20 to 30 kilometers. Plus, drones add more coverage, with most of this 17 kilometers under potential fire. This operational encirclement is already a reality. Some may doubt it, but even the Ukrainian resource deep state confirms that Kurakhove is under operational encirclement. Until the recent breakthrough to Solntsevka, the Ukrainian armed forces could still withdraw from Kurakhove, as the 79th Brigade stationed there had requested. However, their command denied it. Now, the opportunity has been lost, and while it's still possible to withdraw along the Zaporizhzhia road, it would mean facing heavy losses due to concentrated artillery, air, and drone fire. Analyzing the situation, let's consider the 17-kilometer remaining gap. Here on the Kurakhove front, the average advance rate is about 1 to 2 kilometers per day, with movement from both sides, from Maksimivka in the south and Solntsevka in the north. Even if we assume a conservative rate of 500 meters per day from each side, in about 2 weeks, Kurakhove could be fully encircled. The road from Zaporizhzhia to Kurakhove would then be physically controlled by the Russian army. That's the future Kurakhove faces. Now let's delve into more detail on the progress. I mentioned yesterday that Russian units advanced from Maximilianivka to enter Kurakhove from the east. While a few armored vehicles were hit on the eastern outskirts, the infantry managed to deploy. This isn't just about holding a few structures on Kurakhove's eastern edge. Russian units are now advancing within the town itself. Meanwhile, from the north, the encirclement of Kurakhove continues. As I noted, the breakthrough to Solntsevka led Russian units to occupy its northern area, with no issues in fire support, as artillery has been positioned in the nearby towns of Selidov and Novohorodivka, striking at enemy forces. Additionally, Russian forces now control the area between Solntsevka and the village of Zarya. Russian forces are now heavily engaged in the settlement of Zarya, with intense assault operations that may soon force the Ukrainian armed forces to retreat from there. Reports from both local sources and even some Ukrainian sources confirm that Russian units have completely captured Voznesenkivka. This sets the stage for a rapid advance towards Sta-Terny. As we've discussed, Sta-Terny is positioned near the Kurakhove Reservoir Dam, a critical northern logistics route supplying the Ukrainian armed forces. This route is now under Russian artillery fire control, aided by the Russian capture of Berezki. Should Russian forces physically reach Sta-Terny, it would mean a direct cutoff of northern supplies and logistics. If northern logistics are severed, combined with the fire control Russia already holds over the western Zaporizhzhia-Kurakhove route, it would spell certain isolation for Kurakhove. This situation mirrors what happened in Vuhledar, where the opportunity for a safe withdrawal was lost. Should the northern route also be cut off while western fire control remains, Kurakhove's fate will be sealed. Fighting around Kurakhove remains intense. Although an operational pause may give the impression of stalled progress, key strongholds have been captured. Despite requests from soldiers to withdraw, they have been denied, as they understand this may be the last opportunity. Meanwhile, the topic of assault troops is resurfacing in public discourse. No longer seen as elite forces as they were years ago, a systemic issue is now recognized. The Russian army continues its slow but steady advance around Kurakhove, now controlling several fortified positions in the city's eastern neighborhoods. Russian assault progress on Kurakhove's eastern front is hampered by extensive fortifications, trenches with multiple exits, and intricate engineering structures. These can only be safely neutralized if they are fully destroyed by artillery or heavy aerial bombardment. As noted by a Wagner PMC veteran and author of the Telegram channel Condottiero, Russian units are also pushing hard to secure Sontsevka. Once it is cleared, Ukrainian forces in Kurakhove will be nearly cut off. If Russia can add a breakthrough in Konstantinivka to the advances in Sontsevka, Ukrainian options will be very limited. The situation for Kyiv is critical, with Russian forces advancing towards Dalny. They aim to encircle part of the Ukrainian grouping by connecting Dalny and Uspanivka. Additionally, Russian units advancing from Sontsevka are pushing towards Shevchenko, putting Highway 4B at risk of being cut off within days. The 79th and 33rd Brigades, along with territorial defense units, have been denied permission to retreat, despite assurances of reinforcement soon. Kurakhove itself is being heavily shelled. Russian infantry continues to advance gradually in the city, and estimates of a few weeks before Kurakhove's fall may now be revised to as little as 1 week, as observed by Ukrainian journalist Anatoly Shary, who noted that Ukrainian soldiers understand withdrawal is no longer possible without losses under heavy artillery, aerial and drone fire. Yet more challenges remain for Ukrainian forces. For 3 consecutive days, Russian units have been steadily breaking through Ukrainian defenses between Zarya and Novoleksivka, covering over 5 kilometers in this time. This advance not only threatens Ukrainian positions near Zarya, but also opens the potential for Russian forces to push towards Andriivka and further west. The Ukrainian front line is reportedly fracturing under this pressure, as military blogger Yuri Podolyaka describes it, tearing at the seams. Moreover, an operation to encircle Pokrovsk on the flanks has already begun, and no one intends to stop. The assault trooper issue. Against this backdrop, well-known journalist and volunteer Anastasia Kashevarova raises a key issue: the current life expectancy of an assault trooper, which often ranges from 2 weeks to a month, with state expenses between 6 and 12 million rubles. The effectiveness of such an assault trooper is now close to zero. 2 years ago, assault troopers were still elite, highly skilled specialists and fearless professionals.